Hello and welcome to the Downshift. As in this episode, we are reviewing the Australian Grand Prix, where we determine whether the FIA's new regulations have delivered on making racing more exciting, introduce our F1 fantasy and predictions leagues, and revisit our predictions to see who has made an early start or, like Liam Lawson, almost failed to get off the grid. As it's
Lights out.
Drop the clutch.
And let's get racing.
Hello and welcome to the Downshift as we excitedly welcome back Formula One to our land rooms. And what a way to kick off the 2026 F1 season at the Australian Grand Prix at Melbourne's Albert Park Lake Raceway. Joining me is Dan, Lockie, Huppy, and of course myself, KT. This weekend, we welcome back Mr. Saturday as we saw the true speed of the Mercedes giving us a 1-2 finish. And boy, were they fast team.
That was really, really good. It was great, really good to watch. They proves the sandbagging that we're all talking about was absolutely true.
Oh, sandbagging. Everyone knew they were fast.
Yeah, that was the rumour going around. But yeah, good to say they weren't quite as fast in the race, so we should see some competition this year, which is good.
Yeah.
And as we saw Toto leaning back, looking at the camera, giving a nice sly wink, he knew what was going on.
That was the smile of a smug, happy man right there.
But we did see that Ferrari showed flashes of brilliance, but they did falter, and there was chaos from before the grid. Unfortunately, Piastri did not even get to start in his home race.
And worse than that, Nathan wasn't even in the room when he crashed.
Oh, I heard the noise, and yes, everyone said, come back, have a look. And yeah, so instead of my normal orange McLaren hat as a mark of somber respect, I'm wearing my dark one today.
To be fair, you wouldn't have expected there to be much action in the formation lap.
The formation, no.
No, not normally, especially a
So
crash.
Formation lap and then a red flag, wasn't it? Or everyone went back into the pit straight away.
Yeah.
Well, drivers typically do a fairly easy lap because all they need to do is run through all the gears and make sure the systems are working.
Yeah, they didn't even have to warm up tyres or anything. But
as we can talk about later, yeah, there was more to it than just a small incident. So anyway.
And so with that, we will go and break down practice, qualifying, and the race all the way to the checkered flag, and most importantly, see who has taken a boost in our first round of predictions. So before the lights went out, let's rewind to practice, where the pecking order started to emerge, and we saw most of the teams working through some technical gremlins, but some early indications in regards to pace.
the Ferrari were looking dominant in FP1 to 2. Leclerc setting a 1:22.67 and Hamilton close behind, strong one-lap pace. And Lewis seemed revitalised in the Ferrari compared to last year, praising the car's balance post-FP1.
Definitely.
He did seem quite a lot more excited about the car this year.
He looked a lot happier than last year. Yeah.
He got out smiling for a start, so,
Yeah. And look, Ferrari, always quick in FP1 and 2. They run lower fuel and do some faster times. So that was sort of expected, but I guess they wouldn't have been 1 and 2 if their car wasn't decent. So, yeah, it was good to see.
And Arvid Limbrad in the V-Carb looked good too. Got settled down really quickly.
Yeah, for the only rookie that's in the field this year, he really showed that he's deserved to be there straight away, showing some good pace and just, I want to say some maturity in regards to how he was handling the car for a young 18-year-old.
Yeah, he looked quite good, quite stable. Now, the other good thing was watching Audi, when the difference from Bortolalo and Hulkenberg, they were more focused on watching the reliability of the car and outright speed on it. And it was interesting to see that, they were doing pretty consistent laps throughout those practice sessions. And then Red Bull came out and they showed some really good consistency with Verstappen there, especially in P3. But, however, little grumbles began to come through with possible power unit gremlins coming through, and that kind of proved itself during the race.
Yeah. It was Audi were good. Like I was there on the Friday morning at practice and Audi were just consistent. You could tell they weren't pushing super hard through the last section of corners where our grandstand was, but car looked pretty balanced and yeah, they seemed pretty decent.
And so, as you're saying, Happy, you were there on the Friday. As being firsthand, how did it look? How did it feel? More importantly, how did it sound?
Yeah, good question. The sound, look, we're not back at the V10 era, obviously, but the cars did sound good. They were pretty loud, but I think the Porsche Cup were probably the loudest cars that I saw there, or F2 cars. But yeah, the first two practice sessions were interesting because you could tell teams were just doing a lot of system checks, integration checks, and where our grandstand was, we were on the outside of the track on the last two corners. So they come into that left-hander, I think it's turn 13, and then accelerate around onto the main straight. So the main thing that I noticed was obviously there was the top teams who committed to that last corner. They had good aero balance. The cars looked pretty sorted. They were pretty good. Teams like Cadillac, obviously Aston were quite slow through that section for different reasons. I think the Cadillac just didn't look like an easy or nicely balanced car to drive yet.
Was Aston just slow just through that section?
No, well, they were fairly slow everywhere, but they didn't get too many
Nice
laps
dig.
under their belt on Friday. So we all cheered when they went around, that's for sure. But the
Eventually.
main thing that stood out was as they straightened onto the main straight to accelerate, it was like a slingshot. The torque and the acceleration in these cars is at another level compared to what it used to be. I know they run out of battery and they start clipping at the end, slowing down at the end of the straight, but my God, when you see them take off at the start, they have some serious mumbo. They really go.
And the observations are that the Audi sounds noticeably different to the other cars, and from that, the Audi team has the engineers that worked on their diesel race program, so that they attribute that's a little bit of a different perspective in regards to that engine program.
Maybe it had a bit of a deeper sort of bark to it, and all the cars sounded a little bit different. Part throttle. The other noticeable one was the Racing Bulls car, which you could really hear the turbo spool up as they got back on throttle to get into turn 14. But yeah, McLaren just seemed to struggle with a bit of energy deployment issues in those practice sessions. Piastri's car looked a bit understeery through the first practice session onto the main straight, although they seemed to fix that later. And then there was that massive crash for Antonelli, which put a big dampener on the weekend for Mercedes. So they had to work really hard to get his car ready for qualifying, and Mercedes did an outstanding job to get all that work done. It was a pretty big incident, and that again I think highlighted. That was at turn 2, going at the exit of turn 1 onto turn 2. It just highlighted how much power these cars have got, because he wheel spun when he hit the curb and got sideways. So the drivers have to be careful.
Sort of like
and a little bit of
Piastri.
luck with that. A little bit of luck with that red flag too for Mercedes.
Yeah, definitely.
Just bought them at that extra 10 to 15 minutes they needed.
Yeah, exactly.
But I saw also there was clips of Toto going up to Kimi after the crash and just giving a real supportive sort of. There was a hug and there was some words, and just like the confidence, trust the data, or look at the data and learn from it.
Keep your confidence. Yeah, there was a few social media comments to say that's quite the opposite of what Briatore might have said to was one of his drivers.
You don't think the words out of Toto were, "This is coming out of your paycheck"? Like that wasn't part of what he was saying to him, or
I think one of his hands might have been on his wallet as he was saying that.
Exactly.
But to your point, and this is where we did see Kimi, who had that, the engineers had that little bit of extra time to prepare the car for quality. It was looking as though it was going to be a really tall order for them to be able to get the car onto track. And we actually saw Kimi's car get onto track, still with a little bit of the panel damage. So they couldn't get everything fixed. But we saw from practice moving into qualifying, we started to see, again, these torque issues which started to come into play. Qualifying at Albert Park Lake is always intense. It is a fast track, and with new power deployment, this spices things up, as well as challenging the drivers and the engineers through Q1, Q2, and Q3. As I mentioned, we saw the return of Mr. Saturday as Russell took pole with a 1 minute 18.518. although this was almost 3.5 seconds off the qualifying pace from 2025. So we are seeing the cars being slower than the 2025 regulations. But Mercedes looked out the front row with Antonelli in second, followed by Hadjar, Leclerc, Piastri, Norris, Hamilton, Lawson, Lindblad, and Bortoletto in the top 10.
So asking a question then, if we had if they didn't have to, recharge the batteries, if the batteries could make it all the way to the straight, would these cars be quicker based on the speed that they're going down the straights and around the corners and all that? If they didn't have to, to get off and coast, would they be quicker around the track than the previous versions?
I don't think so. I don't think there's 3.5 seconds in it, but when you look at the footage in that fast section around the back of the lake there to turn 9 and 10, in previous years cars were full throttle up to the braking zone, had to downshift a couple of times. This time, as you could see on TV, they were clipping the battery, so they'd hit top speed, they'd lose about 50 or 60 kilometres an hour, still full throttle. So Russell didn't even brake into turn 9, so that there was no extra speed to wash off. I don't think they were 3.5 seconds quicker if they didn't run out of battery though. So I think the aero reduction, they did seem a bit slower through the corners. They weren't as gripped up aerodynamically, but it would be close. It would be a lot closer. Yeah.
I think it's important to mention also for our listeners, those who aren't aware, we've mentioned clipping a few times, and it was mentioned quite a lot during the weekend. Clipping is where the car loses battery. So essentially, you've got that full battery deployment, and as you're coming to the tail end of that, when the battery gets to about 7%, the engine will then clip, which basically pulls back and starts to go into a recharge mode. And so you'll see how quickly the batteries recharge off the engine and off the braking. So that's the clipping where the car loses power. So we saw a lot of interplay between the cars in the race where, again, it was that yo-yoing that was being talked about, was because cars were dropping back on the power, allowing the other car to be able to get past them.
Yeah. And that whole, I guess, teams getting to grips with how to manage that deployment, the recharge, whether it's, do they start recharging when they come off the throttle 50% or 10%, or, every track's going to be different. And you could see drivers all through practice sessions and even qualifying trying to work out, when should I be getting on the power to deliver my deployment of battery power? When should I be coming off on the brake? Because you need to optimize that limited amount of deployment at various points throughout the lap to sort of maximize your lap time. So it was, I don't think every driver enjoyed it either based on the comments afterwards, but we can talk about that later.
But we did see a massive impact on qualifying because we did have Max Verstappen go out in Q1 because we had, again, we're talking about these gremlins with the electronics, is the computer basically locked up the rear axle. And so as Verstappen was going through one of his laps, all of a sudden you saw the car instantly spin on the spot. And it was a really weird thing to watch because you didn't see any lockup, you didn't see anything. It was just the car almost did a 180 on the spot, and that
it was like an
due
instant
to
lockup.
Mm.
And then he bounced across.
I remember we commented at the time. We said that didn't look like driver. It looked like something broke or something else happened to cause that accident. But I guess we're going to see things like that, for the first half of the year, maybe even as long as that, as teams get used to tuning these cars.
But we saw that putting him back to P20 for the start of the race. And what we saw then is Isaac actually coming to P3. So, and I've got to say for Isaac, this is really proving himself as even though it's only the first race, a reliable second driver. So if he can continue to do this is what's been missing at Red Bull for a long time. And of course, everyone being very nervous about the curse of the second seat. But if Isaac can actually perform in that top 10, he's going to be a very valuable member in that team.
Well, he's going to have to, given the fact that Lindblad turned around and did P9 on his first appearance in a race. To pull P9 on your first quali is pretty impressive. And then Bortoletto backed that up with Audi booking in P10, which, I mean, to be fair, none of us expected Audi to be even in the vicinity of where that was. So that was actually quite impressive as well. And then, Piastri got up there for P5, we were all cheering him along and all that. But the fact that he got ahead of Lando was a good thing as well. And, even Lawson, P8 there. So he with a bit of aggression, all that, he can get there as well. So obviously we weren't expecting anything out of Aston Martin, and we got exactly what we were expecting out of Aston Martin. So we weren't too shocked about that. And basically the same out, even Cadillac was the same. We weren't really expecting much out of them. They were gathering data and going around the track, and it wasn't the worst first outing for them to be, if we're brutally honest.
I think we're lucky to see Aston Martin, were we at all?
Well,
Yeah.
Based on the presses, we didn't think we were going to. So
no, but
clearly
glad they got out there and got within that 107%, so they could race. Yeah.
Oh, they had to do something, didn't they? They've got to be. It's all testing for them now until they get their little power unit sorted out sufficiently. But it was definitely Mercedes' day. They crushed it with a front row lockout. Russell on pole, 1:18.518 seconds, and Antonelli just 0.293 behind, showcasing their superiority with their PU, which they've had a long time to develop. And I think that shows, doesn't it, that they've had the engine to develop in-house with their own car. And
but just to remember, Mercedes pay was McLaren. They also Alpine. So it's not just them. So their power units and that are still in the other teams as well. So it can't all just be the power unit.
No, but the way they use it and deploy energy and recharge, and I think the other teams have got something to work on. And the news from McLaren was that Andrea Stella said, we think we know what we need to do now, because they could look at what Mercedes did throughout the weekend to get that lap time. But going back to your point, Daniel, about Mercedes crushing it with that front row lockout, the big story there, I think, was Antonelli, because he was only 0.3 behind Russell with a car that was destroyed in FP3. And when they interviewed him after quali, he said that they got the car out on track, but they didn't even have time to do a full sort of setup and check everything and do their alignments and whatever. So they just gave him a car. Good luck, mate. Away you go. And he's got to do full commitment laps to get there. So that was an unbelievably good job.
Yeah, and he was never sort of on the brink of being knocked out either. Like, he was in every session, he was well and truly through.
Yeah. No, so I think that the car must be relatively easy to drive, like nice to drive as well. The drivability must be really good, because he obviously had enough confidence, even without all the practice and warm up, to get out there and get the job done. So well done, Antonelli, and well done, Mercedes.
Well, and I think we've got to say well done to Ferrari too. They did well in there with their car. Looks like they've got a decent package this year, P4 and P7 for Hamilton. But what we're saying, there's some setup inconsistencies and still a few, maybe a bit team strategy concerns.
To be fair, Dan, you really need to be cheering him along, given that
I do. I'm fully behind him. I didn't buy this for nothing. As you're saying, Schwags, with some setup inconsistencies, the grid was set, but the race delivered pure F1 chaos. So let's break down the main event. As the lights went out on Sunday, we didn't see the carnage that we were all expecting, not for lack of trying. Lawson had a terrible start, looking to have some clutch issues, but it was the precision driving of Colapinto avoiding a major collision. And we saw some amazing pace from the front of the pack that led into the race that delivered. So with that, we did have George Russell, who finished first, followed by Kimi Antonelli, Charles Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton, Lando Norris, and Max Verstappen, who came from P20. Now, it was the top 6 who finished the race before we then got into cars being lapped. So as soon as you got past Max, that top 6 had lapped every other car in the field for that race.
Which we'd sort of expected. We expected there'd be a bit of a gap in performance between the best teams and the worst teams. So, yeah.
If the gap from drivers 6 down, is that due to the new regs coming into play?
Yeah. Just because, we knew that going into this season, there'd be a pretty big gap between the top teams and those that were struggling to get a car on grid and be competitive. So, for everyone up to 6 to get lapped in a race is probably pretty rare. So, that number, that should change as the season goes on and the bottom teams find a bit more pace, because you'd hope they would develop fairly quickly.
Well, and you've probably got a few drivers that should have been in that top 6 that didn't get going or didn't finish the race either.
Yeah.
Maybe Piastri.
Yep, exactly.
Piastri, Padjar.
Yep.
But with Piastri, we had Piastri who had crashed out on the formation lap. Now, we saw this again with a torque peak. So essentially, as he was going around, he came out of the pits radioing the garage saying, "I've got no power." It probably made a couple of changes, press enter, and then as he's been going through, he's geared up. And you actually, and Lockie, I think you pointed that out, is that you saw the lights on the top of the steering wheel all of a sudden just go to full revs. And so you're seeing a delivery of an extra 100 kilowatts of power in that upshift, which, again, Piastri took it on the chin saying it was mainly me, but there was a massive delivery of power, which he didn't have when he was going through quality.
And he was on the curb. He was on the curbs when that happened too. So when it spun, it wasn't on tarmac. He was slightly off the track. But that was the same problem Lawson had off the line. He had no guts, no power, no nothing. So he was almost like a stall basically, and he couldn't get off the line. Just bogged it down completely. He had nothing at all that he could use. And didn't Hadjar say that he had no electric, which is why he chased in the first corner.
He had no battery.
No battery. So he couldn't then keep up with everybody else who hit the battery and took off when they got to that first corner. So
I think Russell said he had no battery at the start. Antonelli had no battery at the start. So again, more of these integration car issues as teams sort stuff out. It's the first race start they've all done together as well. So yeah.
Is that managing their battery in the formation lap, isn't it? Or the warm up? Not the formation lap. Their first lap before the race.
Yeah, formation lap. Yeah, but I mean, I guess they probably have different engine modes and settings for that lap to warm tyres, warm brakes, get the car prepared and ready. But it just goes to show how complicated these things are. Like the drivers have been saying how complicated the management of battery deploy and everything is. More switches for them to use. There's more modes. There's X mode. There's boost. There's overtake. One of the drivers in the race said they hit the wrong button. It's just very complicated. It's got to be complicated for the teams and strategists as well, who have to monitor the car's data as they're going around and see what drivers are doing. So, not surprising, but I don't know.
But if you get it right, look at Leclerc, for example, P4. If you can launch that thing off the line, he was like a hot knife through butter.
That was the best footage all day. He's on board at the start.
Yeah.
And that's where George, when he was being interviewed, George said it's not that Charles did have a good start, but also a lot of us also had a bad start. So that added to that movement. But again, it was just beautifully driven. And we saw that with that early battle between both Charles and George. And we're talking about that yo-yoing because they were using the energy going through, and that was that deployment of battery, the clipping, and so the back and forth until George was able to get well ahead of Charles.
Who didn't like seeing that? Because in the past 2 seasons, the front cars got out, and within a lap, they're 30 seconds in front.
Yep.
This time, in the first couple of laps, there was 8 lead changes, and it was going the whole way through. People were, you can call it clipping, whatever you want to do, boost power, but it was actually great to see some racing where they had to fight. To me, I'd rather see the top 2, 3, 4 cars fight than watch the first one get out of the front and go whoosh, and you don't see them again for the rest of the race. I mean, that was actually good to watch, and I enjoyed that more than I watched the other races previously. To go, oh look, McLaren's out in front. We won't see them now till they put the camera on the last lap and go, wow, what a great race he's done. Like,
you're saying you enjoyed that more than Monaco last year?
1 or 2 degrees, yeah.
Just a bit.
It was good that the cars showed that they have the capability now to get overtakes done if they want. They can deploy more power. They can pull past someone down a straight, but it obviously sacrifices something for them later in the lap. But then I guess that adds to strategy. So yeah, but from my point of view, it was great to see Mercedes not just take off in the distance and win the race by 30 seconds. They actually had a bit of a battle with Ferrari, and it looked reasonably close at the end.
Yeah, so while Mercedes was showing to be strong, Ferrari's showing that they do have potential.
Definitely with race pace, yeah.
Yeah, it might come as a surprise that Ferrari screwed the pit stop up, and they probably should have put one of them in to change
Yeah,
tyres then, and as opposed to leaving them both out. And Lewis may have mentioned that on the radio if I remember correctly. But,
Yeah.
there's time they can fix that over the season. They should get there together. They'll be fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
I only hope they disappoint you as much this year, Dan, as they did Happy and me last
For
year.
you last year. Yeah. I was conscious of that. Like, you guys were picking Ferrari last year. And I'm like, oh, I'm going down a really dark hole here, following you guys into the fray from last year. But
Dan, don't you remember how
Oh,
much
well,
we laughed when they
I'll
picked Ferrari
give it a
last
go.
year? Like, we
Oh, look,
laughed and
and I
laughed.
figure at worst, you guys will have something to laugh about at the end of this season. And that's all good.
And during. Don't
I
worry,
don't
there'll be
think-
during as well.
But I don't think any of us got right our predictions of DNFs for the race, did we? What did we have? 5 and 6 and what was the other number?
4.
3,
Yeah.
4.
Yeah.
So what did we have? We had Piastri. You had the talk.
Three DNFs and 2 did not start. So Piastri and Hulkenberg don't count.
Fortunately, Aston Martin kept putting race tape on their car and getting it back out with some rubber bands or something. And
I heard it was
stopped us
twine
getting
at
some
one
points.
stage. They just,
Twine.
yeah.
Well, they got valuable laps, but yeah.
It was disappointing that Hulkenberg couldn't even start, though. I was disappointed he couldn't even get to the line, but that was literally a computer glitch. They couldn't even get the car to speak back to the pits. So.
Yeah, there's a comms issue, and so that's from a safety perspective, you just can't have the car out on the track for that. So no.
So Hadjar had his engine failure, Bottas mechanical failure, and Alonso an undrivable car, 21 laps, in and off again. I found it interesting that they were putting Alonso out and then Stroll out, and then I'm like, who's coming out next for Aston
For another
Martin?
crack at it. Yeah.
But mind you, like Hadjar's engine failure, but Verstappen had no issues with his. He managed to get that thing, right to the end.
Yep.
And I've got to say, I'm really disappointed in Aston Martin because that stuffed up my prediction for the last car across the line, because I did have Perez and Stroll went and let me down. So
To be fair, we were quite disappointed because your son was there yesterday and we were picking on him every time they'd go in the pits and say, they got finished. And then he'd point back at us and go, they're back out on track again, like 11 laps behind, but back out on track again. So,
back out.
I think it was character building for him.
he's going to have a lot of character building this season. Yeah.
Just like for you this year, Dan, as well.
Yeah. So we've got to say that Ford power unit, they've done all right with that, haven't they?
For a new engine,
Performance and reliability, out of 3 out of
apart from one car stopping,
3 out of 4. Yeah, I mean,
yeah, but performance-wise, like you look at how that engine's performed. The Audi has also done a good job with their engine. So it's pretty good.
Well, basically, you're happy as long as you don't have a Honda engine in your car. Let's be honest.
Yeah, the outlier is the Honda. Yeah.
And so we did talk about overtaking, Happy, and I'll put that up on the screen there from Formula One. We're very proud to say
There were more overtakes this year. Thank God for that. Like, we looked at the data last year, the number of times, average number of overtakes was decreasing each year and seemingly round by round as we got to the end of the last set of regulations. And we were hoping that this new set would deliver more overtakes. So they did. 45 last year, 120 this year. So that's, I think, a good sign. I know a lot of those overtakes would have been cars getting past lapped cars because of the field spread. But, like we saw at the start, the fact that Leclerc and Russell could, leapfrog each other down the straights and there was a bit of a battle going on with their energy deployments was maybe a sign of good things to come.
do you reckon that's going to continue the rest of the season, or will all the teams going to figure their stuff out in the next, few weeks?
I think it really could, because, if you can be strategic about it and put a surprise move on someone down a shorter straight to get in front and then defend that position, you can legitimately gain positions by being sneaky and careful about where you use your boost and overtake button to get past someone or into a corner or whatever. So, I really hope it does continue,
Because presumably there's an optimal lap of where you use boost, where you harvest and everything else. And that's, everyone's going to be getting to that point. But in amongst that, if you can be from behind and go, I'm going to go now, get in front and upset the other driver who's going, hang on, crap, I want to get back in front, or now I'm being held back by the other car or whatever.
And then if you can defend
a bit more.
But that's okay. Two cars battling are going to go slower. That's how it works in all forms of racing. And, people behind might catch up. It just adds a bit more excitement. And Yeah, I'd bring it on. Like, it's good. I mean, I hate how complicated the cars are, and I think a lot of the audience watching the race would have found it a bit confusing as to what was going on because, the broadcast never showed who was using an overtake or who was using boost or whatever. There was really none of that. They were just left to commentate the race. But, it is a complicated thing now.
But do you reckon that'll filter through? That should filter through, though.
Yeah, it should. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can certainly see the broadcasters over the next few months talking more about these modes, and maybe they'll implement some graphics for the broadcast to show when things are happening, which would be good for us to see. So, especially, you got long straights of China, for example, it'd be great to know that the car behind has hit the overtake button, and the car in front has responded and done the same thing or not, like that would be good from a viewer's point of view.
And hopefully that's where over the coming weeks, the broadcasters are going to get better. The commentators even struggled with that at Melbourne, trying to explain to the viewers what was going on. So, and I think the race will become a lot more strategic. So to your point, Schwags, is there's going to be an optimal way of racing it, but racing that optimal way, you're going to see the drivers adapt to that. And so it is going to become a lot more strategic as to how they deploy energy, how they harvest energy, where they're going to use it.
Well, hopefully the commentators come up with a better analogy than taking sweets from a shop and putting them in. Because I was what the hell? Like, that was the worst analogy.
And they stuck with it for the whole weekend.
They did. Yeah, they ran with it. I'm like, oh. Yeah, anyway. Move on.
So look, overall, 2026 regs have delivered exciting racing, but exposed energy starvation issues with the cars slowing mid-lap, creating those real overtakes. But before we go and see how our crystal balls fared, or the lucky hat, should I say, just wanted to share with our listeners that we now have created our very own Downshift Fantasy and Predictions League. So if you'd like to pit yourself against the team here, I've added the links.
Bring it on.
I've added the links to the description below. But Lockie, you said the links didn't work quite so well. So if you want to take us through how people can sign up to the Downshift League.
Yeah, so I was doing it off a mobile phone, so maybe off a PC or a tablet might work better. But as you actually click on it, the last part of the link is actually our code or our team number. So if you just put that into the actual, when you're trying to join a team, you'll be able to jump straight through it. And to be fair, even though, we've done it and we put our tips in, we're getting beaten by one of our listeners as we speak right now.
Yeah.
That's what already been done. Yeah.
Plus, I can't remember whether I put the same predictions in that I did on our podcast either. So I'm going to have to try and make sure they're the same.
Maybe that's not a bad thing. So
at this point in time, we would like to congratulate the Bronny Team 1, who are currently beating all of us as we speak. Yeah.
Yep. Does the winner of that league get a plastic trophy as well?
I'm sure we could possibly organise something, but
shouldn't be giving away our limited budget. Sorry about
that. But no, look, bragging rights. But yeah, so from that regards, it's never too late to join. So if you are an F1 fantasy or predictions, you can join a league at any time. So again, if you're doing really well, we don't want you to join the league, but
there's a link to other leagues in the description.
But look, and so as we're saying, Bronny Team 1 leads the fantasy ladder with 259 points. But Lockie, you're currently leading the F1 Predict ladder with 44 points at this stage.
But once I understood what I'd done to win that, it was fantastic. So it was good.
Maybe I did muck up my predictions on that one.
Oh, come on. It was all skill.
But look, Lockie, unfortunately, that's where your lead ends. So as we recall the predictions for this weekend, we were predicting pole, first, second, third. But to add some points to grab, we also predicted who would come last and how many DNFs we expected to see on the weekend. So I've put the table up here on the screen for those who are watching this on YouTube.
That's a depressing-looking table, just to let you know.
It's pretty good. Everyone should hop onto the YouTube channel and have a look at this.
So with that, we can see that Huppy has used his boost mode and has taken an impressive lead with 10 points so far, with Lockie and Schwag sitting at 6 points and me doing a punchy and sitting there at 3 points at this point in
looks
time.
like you stalled on the grid there, KT. That's not a great start.
Yeah.
I did indeed.
Not a great start.
It's a long season.
Also mention we've also added some Formula One live timing dashboard that people can find on our website using the official Formula One data feed. So if you go to thedownshift.com.au, you'll find a link to our live timing page that has real-time data for all practice, qualifying sessions and the race. So if you're a fan, and we'll be trying to add a few more nifty little features to that throughout the year. So, feel free to check that out. And we'll add a link to our description in the YouTube video and hopefully our Spotify podcast.
And the good thing with that is that you'll see lap times all the time rather than on the tower on Fox Sports where they just sometimes drop it off altogether. Go, no, we don't want people to see.
It's the full timing page with lap times, whether drivers are pitted, what tyres are on, how many laps they've done, microsectors, sector times. It's got so all the Formula One nerds who love that sort of data and stuff. Check out the live timing page.
We can see just how far behind Aston Martin really is. It'll be good.
Exactly. And cheer when they get back on track after sitting in the pits for 10 laps. Yeah.
Is there enough numbers in that column?
Might have to make it bigger.
Yeah, the thing I do love there is the microsectors, because you only see the 3 sectors on the TV. The microsectors actually show where the drivers are just getting those extra tenths. So you'll be able to see the purple sectors.
Especially
so a lot more detail.
quali. Yeah, the quali sessions are good because we've added the cutoff line for the different quali sessions, and you can see who's setting purple sectors and who's close. So, that is pretty good.
It's good.
So from that, some of us have made some bold predictions last weekend. So it looks like I owe everyone a round of drinks this coming weekend.
We shall remember, don't worry.
But as we wrap up, was there any other points we wanted to make, team, before we wrap up the episode?
Interesting to see with this longer track and longer straights, who can actually pull out this weekend coming and what our talking points are and who's going to predict who for next weekend.
I'm interested to see how the rookies continue to go. Like, the young drivers and rookies, the new regs are a real leveling of the playing field because everyone's driving the new car now. It's not as if you're a rookie coming into a car that Max Verstappen's been developing for 5 years. So we would expect them to be hopefully fairly close to their main drivers, but to see Lindblad doing well, Bortoletto doing well, like Hadjar doing well in that Red Bull, that's really awesome to see. So hopefully they give the number one drivers a run for their money. But and obviously I'm hoping to be celebrating McLaren's performance with an orange hat next week. So go Oscar,
or at least completing a race lap.
I'm looking forward to seeing Oscar complete a race lap. That would be good to see.
We'll all cheer.
So with that is the first round wrapped up. Mercedes is back on top, but with 23, or as we just said, maybe 21 races left to go, where anything can happen. Make sure that you do like and subscribe so that you get notified as soon as our next episode, which is our China preview, drops. Until then, we'll see you on the next lap.